Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast, back with another game preview of the first round, 9:45 p.m. tip on Friday night. We've got number 4 Kansas taking on number 13 Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist making their first ever tournament appearance out of the WAC, taking down Utah Valley in what was a pretty thrilling game for anybody that stayed up till 2 a.m. on Saturday night like I did. Utah Valley missing the dunk to tie the game. But really, the story was they were up 6 with a minute and a half left, and Dominique Daniels, the player of the year in the WAC, hit 3 straight threes to put them up 2. And then they got the stop, so to speak, but really just a missed dunk, by Isaac Davis, which really, put the game on ice. But anyway, Cody, in this matchup, what does Kansas need to do to avoid an upset?
Yeah, and Daniels he's basically everything for this Cal Baptist offense. He takes 34% of his team's shots while he's on the floor, which is the 11th highest mark in the entire country rate-wise. So I think that's kind of the number one thing is how do you limit Dom Daniels' scoring? And, I do think Kansas does have some answers. I do think they have, length and athleticism and positional size to throw at, the smaller Daniels. He's only 5'11". He is very quick and could potentially, create some advantages off the bounce for others. But that is kind of a question for this Cal Baptist offense is, those other guys contributing at a high level. But, if they throw, I think the first guy they'll throw at Daniels is Melvin Council, and he's one of the better guard defenders, at least in the Big 12. And they also have a Marco Jackson. I think those will be the two main guys that they throw at Daniels. And I like Kansas's chances if those guys are going to be covering him. I mean, Kansas is also just very switchable at every position. I think they would be okay with, they'll 1 through 5 switch at times, and Badunga can be caught in space against Daniels. And I don't hate that matchup for Badunga. He's a really good lateral mover for his size, and just his length could give Daniels a really tough time. So that's really the main thing. That's at the top of the scouting report is how do you limit him? They also need to limit second chances. Cal Baptist is a really good offensive rebounding team, 11th nationally in offensive rebound rate. Although they actually didn't play one team all season that finished inside the top 100 in defensive rebound rate. Kansas doesn't actually qualify as a top 100 defensive rebound rate team. So they're kind of in the same boat. They're 168th in defensive rebound rate this season. So they're just going to need to emphasize that, keep the size of Cal Baptist off the glass, and Grimmin, Energy, and Ngong off of the glass. They do have 3 bigs that can, size-wise, can go, rebound for rebound with this group. So they definitely need to keep that in check. On the offensive end, I think it's, take advantage of the drop coverage of Cal Baptist, particularly Darren Peterson. Kansas hasn't really graded out all that well in pick and roll all season long, but if you're going to give Darren Peterson space and drop consistently, he's going to take that. He's going to, come off those screens, one dribble, either into a 3 or into the mid-range, where, he's one of the most pure shot makers that I've seen in college basketball in the last 5 years. One of the more talented players on the perimeter. Cal Baptist, they want to limit playing in rotation, and, in turn, it's going to lead to, Darren Peterson creating, and then they can work a little bit through the post with Badunga as well. So Cal Baptist is going to have to contain him inside, and I think Badunga can have some success in post-up. Cal Baptist doesn't grade out all that well as a post-up defense, even though they do give it up at a 99th percentile clip. So it's going to come down to, I think, Peterson and Badunga in the 2-man action to provide offensive success, which I'm not sure, Cal Baptist, they'll be okay with it, I think, at least at the start of this game. But if Peterson's kind of ripping them apart, they're going to have to go somewhere else.
Yeah. It's like I want to like Cal Baptist in this game, and, looking at the Cal Baptist side of things, there are certainly avenues, like you pointed out. It's really just, I think, a matter of Cal Baptist offensively in this game. Dominique Daniels, I think, just shoulders so much of the load, right? So for them to have a way to win this game. I think they're going to need him to really have one of those days where he had 47 in a game earlier this season. He had 41, I think it was in the semifinal of the WAC tournament. The other night against Utah Valley, he had a tough shooting night. I think he was 7 of 25, but still hit 3 big shots to ice it. I think if they're able to get on the offensive glass in this game, like Daniels is going to take a lot of shots, going to take a lot of tough ones. And I think potentially their best offense at times could be just getting it up on the glass. We saw them earlier in the year against, I think BYU, Colorado, and Utah. They had 14, and 23 or 25 offensive rebounds. I forget the number in those 3 games. So, it's not like those are fantastic defensive rebounding teams. But then again, like you mentioned, Kansas isn't either 164th in defensive rebound rate. And then on the other end, like it's not like Kansas is going to get all on the offensive glass. So Cal Baptist, I think, has a chance to really win the rebounding battle here. It's just, for me, a matter of offensive efficiency. I think it's going to be a struggle. I think they're going to need to really sort of slow the pace of this game down, which, Kansas, it's not like they play lightning fast, but they're looking to play in transition when they can. But if they can, limit turnovers, Cal Baptist, it's not like Kansas is really getting after you, but if you can limit that so Kansas isn't getting out in transition, try and shrink this game down, and try and make it physical, win on the glass on the offensive end, I think there's a chance. They have some guys that could potentially make some shots, like Martell Williams, Jaden Jackson. Jaden Jackson, I think, had a tough game, 1 of 9 in 37 minutes in that game the other day against Utah Valley. He's shown to be a capable 3-point shooter throughout the course of the season. So maybe they can knock some shots down. On the defensive end, I think it's going to be a struggle as well. I think Peterson's just a bit too much. Can they force it out of his hands and make others have to beat them? And, I think Cal Baptist has like some physical on-ball defenders. Like they bring Devin Malcolm in off the bench, who's kind of a more physical guard who did some nice things the other day against Utah Valley. Martell Williams is a solid defender as well. And then they got the 2 guys up front, that have led to a pretty solid 2-point defense. So can they force it out of Peterson's hands and be physical with some of these other guys and make them have to be playmakers? Maybe, and then just like limit post-up game, limit the amount of clean touches and clean looks that like Badunga gets at the rim and Peterson gets in the mid-range or 3. Just mixing up different looks and trying to be physical with these guys. I think the key is going to be trying to make this game sort of a rock fight if you want to stick around. If they're able to do that, I think that they can make it quite interesting. But, I just worry a little bit about the offensive efficiency for them to come out with a win. But, Cody, game pick-wise, who are you going with here and why?
Yeah, that's kind of how I view this game, is as just more of a defensive grinder. And, if Kansas isn't making shots, they don't have like a ton of other areas to turn to, just because of, Cal Baptist's elite shot volume profile, especially for a mid-major. But at the end of the day, I do think KU's defense can limit Dom Daniels, and they're just very reliant on him, and they have like 4 or 5 different guys that they can throw at him with limited help. So I just view this game as kind of a brick fest, and I think Darren Peterson's shot making in like mid to late second half is enough to allow the Jayhawks to pull away. So yeah, I have Kansas winning this in a low scoring one.
Yeah, I do as well. I'm gonna say Kansas. I'm just gonna throw a score out there just for the heck of it. We're gonna say Kansas 74-61. I think it's. I think Kansas ends up getting up into the 70s due to some free throws late, but ultimately, just like I said, the efficiency of Cal Baptist comes back to bite them. But it could be a fun game maybe if Dom Daniels goes off. But anyway, we're going to wrap things up here Thank you for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.